I call this meeting of the Duncanville Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that the meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the principal of Alexander?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Cassandra moved and Tom seconded to approve. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
So I'll introduce her.
Okay.
So at this time, I'm going to ask our Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, Ms. Kathleen Brown, to come up and introduce our principal for Alexander Elementary.
Do we need to take a vote?
Yes, we'll have to.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Oh, sorry, me too. Any opposed? Motion passed 5-0.
Good evening, Vice President Savage Martin, Dr. Smith, Board of Trustees. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Fry to you this evening. Ms. Fry brings over 21 years of experience in the field of education. She obtained her bachelor's degree in English from Texas A&M in 1997 and her master's degree in educational leadership from Texas Women's University in 2010. She taught English for 14 years while also serving as an instructional facilitator and IB coordinator. She served 2 years as an assistant principal in Carrollton ISD and for the past 5 years has served as academic associate principal in Mansfield ISD. She was awarded the Very Important Profession of Teaching VIP Award in 2006. She is also an international Rotary member and past board member of Texas IB Schools. Her strengths include excellent communication, interpersonal skills, implementation of effective instructional practices, and staff developer. Ms. Fry is committed to joining the Duncanville IS team and providing a safe, relevant, and challenging learning environment for students and staff. I introduce to you Ms. Erin Fry.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. I am so very thankful for this opportunity and for the trust that you've placed in me to take this position. I would also like to thank my family and my friends for always being in support of me, standing by me, and uplifting me. And they're here tonight, so.
Please stand. Her family and friends, yes. Thank you.
I'd also like to take a moment to thank my mentors from the past. I stand on their shoulders for sure, and they have shaped me, and I look forward to the new mentors that I'm sure to have here. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, Board Member Joe Veracruz will lead us in the invocation as we start the opening ceremonies.
Please stand. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, in lieu of all the things that are happening around the world and in our local area, Lord, as long as we keep our eye on you, all things are possible. We ask the Holy Spirit to lead us, Lord, in all we do, Board of Trustees, our superintendent, our leadership team, Lord, our departments, and especially our schools, Lord, as we induct one of our newest principals. We ask, Lord, for the safety of the schools. We ask for the safety of the Holy Spirit to rain down on our district. Heavenly Father, only you can make this happen, Lord. So we come to you with an open heart and an open mind. In your mighty name I pray, amen. Amen.
Students from Hyman Elementary School will lead us in the pledges.
right, I would like to introduce my students. My third graders are Amadian Mitchell, Christian Morris, and RJ Hill, and Michaela Davis. My fourth graders are Madison Lee, Gabriella Noriega, and Kaylexi Lee, and they are led by their sponsor and counselor, Miss Debbie Thibodeau. Thank you guys so much for inviting us.
We now move to recognitions, commendations, as we welcome Miss Tiara Richard.
Good evening, Vice President, Ms. Savage Martin, Dr. Smith, and Board of Trustees. As always, it is just a great privilege to stand before you and celebrate some of our great teachers, students, and staff here in the district. I'd like to start off by doing our Made with Pride Teacher of the Month, Ms. Sharon Holen. Sharon is a library media specialist at Brandenburg Intermediate, and she was nominated by her principal, Ms. Tamara Thompson. She is a librarian, but she wears many, many hats to support our kids in our schools. She volunteered to help with youth in government and has been successful with those students. In fact, did y'all just get back from Austin? Just got back from Austin with a very successful trip. Each month they have monthly breakfast for moms and dads on the first Friday and other Fridays of the month. And without any guidance from anyone else, she chose to decorate the library and have that library ready for these parents when they come in. She also sets up a selfie station so they can support whatever the theme is that's going on. Again, no one asked her to do this. She just takes the initiative to take it on herself to make it happen. She also volunteers to tutor and opens up the computer lab every morning for students so they can work on the iStation. And not only that, she volunteers to create the schedules, type letters, follow up with parents and teachers. She's available like clockwork every morning, encouraging students to use the lab. And if that weren't enough, she also reads in the classrooms. So she takes time upon herself to go into the classrooms and read to the kids. And when the kids put in special requests for books that they want to read, she makes sure she gets them for them. So she's doing everything she can to make sure the kids feel supported, the staff feel supported, the parents feel wanted and engaged. And we couldn't have asked for more. So it's an honor to recognize Ms. Sharon Holen as our Made with Pride in Duncanville Teacher of the Month. And up next, we have our Staff of the Month, Ms. Adina Johnson. So Ms. Johnson is a campus monitor at the high school in our Safety and Security Department. She was nominated by Safety and Security Supervisor, Mr. Jesse Ruffin. Ms. Johnson really does enjoy her job, and anyone who has ever met her knows that about her. What's most important, that students really love and respect her for what she does, how she cares for them, and shows that she cares. She has substantial people skills, and we know how important that is in this day and age, no matter what you do. She's seen speaking with senior members of the team, administrators, kids, all of them with equal ease. And she regularly says, you just don't learn anything by talking. So she's a good listener, and the kids appreciate that. Her positive energy is contagious, and anyone who works with her feels that, the smile that she shines anytime you see her. Look at that picture. That is her all day, every day. She is just an amazing team member and just a wonderful asset for Duncanville High School, and we are proud to announce her our Staff of the Month, Made with Pride in Duncanville, Ms. Adina Johnson. Last but not least with our Made with Pride honors is our Student of the Month, Ms. Isioma Jonah. Miss Isioma is a kindergarten student at Bill Hart's Elementary, and she was nominated by her teacher, Miss Brittany Shockey. Isioma goes above and beyond to help other students, and that's just a real joy to find in a child this young. She gives of herself every day in the classroom. She looks for ways to help other students to learn. She's kind and willing to help other students and her teacher in any way she can. She really takes the initiative with helping others in the classroom. She helps them write, she helps them draw, she answers questions. She guides one student in particular who needs special assistance whenever he needs to leave the classroom, or he encourages him to listen. So she's just an automatic support system for other students in the classroom. In particular, one student has special needs. She is an absolute leader in the classroom, and that leadership is an example of what she wants to do in her future career. She plans to become a teacher. So she's following in the footsteps of Ms. Shockey, and I know that when speaking with her, that was a big honor. So I'd take pride in announcing our Student of the Month, Made with Pride in Duncanville, Ms. Isioma Jonah. And while our Made with Pride in Duncanville honorees take a photo with our board vice president, we have a quick video to show you just a little bit more insight into why these people were selected.
Duncanville ISD congratulates the following student, staff member, and teacher who were made with pride in Duncanville.
When I grow up, I'm gonna be a teacher. We get to help kids. By helping them put their backpacks up and helping them right a little. I feel so happy. I feel so happy to help them learn.
Well, I interact with the kids on a daily basis, so I try to learn a name a day. I'm just honest and genuine. I really want to help them. I tell them I want to see them be successful students. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I really enjoy coming to work, and my coworkers. I enjoy working with them. I just enjoy working with people that I work with. The staff is good. I like the people at Duncanville High School. It's good. We're like family.
I chip in wherever help is needed, not just in the library, although the library is my favorite place. I chip in if they need help in the morning. Right now I'm doing tutoring before school for 5th and 6th grade, Monday through Friday. In the mornings, I volunteer to help with government. I've helped with the Gate Club, and just wherever I can help, helping other people makes me happy.
These honorees truly are made with pride in Duncanville.
Before I move on, I did want to ask any of the family members here, and that includes employees in the district because we're all family, if you wouldn't mind standing and recognizing these special people who do so much great work here in the district. Thank you. Next up, we have some All-State honors that we want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time recognizing. So we have our All-State musicians, and the All-State is the highest honor a Texas music student can receive. Around 1,700 students are selected through a process that begins with more than 64,000 students from around the state. So receiving an All-State honor puts our students in the top 3% of those competing. That's a really impressive number, again, the top 3%. First up, I'd like to call up our All-State Band honorees. Mercy Agunlade. Jose Moreno. Kyle Hines. And Patrick Sanford. So these are our 4 students who are recognized for all-state band. Wanted to also point out that Mercy, this is her 2nd year. She was here last year, if you don't recognize her face. I recognize the name because I have to pronounce it. Thank you. In addition, we wanted to also take this time to show you the uniforms that band students will be wearing next year. Mr. Brandon brought a photo so that you can see the way our students will look and how they represent the district in their style and dress once they take the field next year, next season. So just wanted to show you that. If you have any questions, Mr. Brandon is available. I can't talk band. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. And second up, we have our all-state choir students who, again, went on to represent the district at state. First up, we have Mr. Matthew Merritt, 3rd chair, base 1. And we have Mr. Aiden Benson. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, Duncanville High School had 45 singers participate in all-state process this year, and these 2 gentlemen really took it to the top level and received high honor. So I wanted to congratulate you guys and thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Richard. We now move into the superintendent's reports. I turn it over to Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. It's a pleasure to me to bring the following reports to you that fall under Superintendent's Report. I want to begin by updating you all on the All-In Staff Development Day that we had on February 9th. As you know, we are continuing to focus on best practices, equipping our teachers with the best possible practices to educate our students. And so on February 9th, we had a professional development day. We had over 120 courses that were offered. The topics included science, math, gifted and talented, bilingual, career technology, several different topics we were able to address for our teachers. We had a team that did an excellent job of vetting the presenters to make sure that the quality of the presentation met our expectations. And so that went well for us, and it's always good to take care of our teachers. And so you see a photo there of the food truck. That was a big hit. We had several food trucks out there, so our staff didn't have to leave necessarily to go and have lunch, and it was a good time for us to fellowship during that lunchtime before we went back to work. Our CNI team, they spent a lot of time vetting the presenters, as I mentioned to you. Really want to give them a lot of compliments for the work that went into putting on the Staff Development Day. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes in order to make a day like that run smoothly, and so they did an outstanding job and wanted to share that with the board. We also had a group of students attend the Dallas County Promise Leadership Summit. You may recall that in the past we missed out as a district on the Dallas County Promise and all the opportunities that it provides for our students in terms of scholarships and free education for their college. And so, as I mentioned to you last board meeting, we have submitted the application process. I feel confident that we will become a part of this, and so this was a great opportunity for our students to be exposed to a lot of the activities associated with the Dallas County Promise. So we sent this group of students to participate in this leadership summit. They had an opportunity to hear a gentleman by the name of Fred Gray, who is a civil rights leader, an attorney, and an activist. He has lots of accomplishments, and he talked to them about leadership and what that means for students today. He talked to them about opportunities that were available for them for college. And so This was a great opportunity for them to partner and see other students, peers in other districts, and be exposed to the kind of things that I think really motivate students, encourage students, and give them the exposure they need to be on fire for college. And so I wanted to share that with you. Very proud of those students and what they're going to be doing as a result of that program. We also had our National Signing Day last week, and you know, many of you, we all know the percentage of students that really actually get an opportunity to go and play football or basketball or soccer, whatever their sport is, at the next level. That's really a small number. So for us to have 14 Duncanville High School football players receive more than $1 million in scholarships, and then the 2 Duncanville High School soccer players that also signed letters of intent to go to college. It's one thing to have the opportunity to play their sport, but to get a free education also. And so it's a great opportunity for our students. And so I had an opportunity to attend the National Signing Day. It was just very exciting to see the smiles on the parents' faces and the students as they were signing their letters to go to college and take that first step in their next future beyond Duncanville High School. And so that was a great opportunity. Coach Harper and the coaches did an outstanding job of putting that together as well. So wanted to share that with you. Also, the first week of February was National School Counselors Week. And so we certainly appreciate our counselors here in Duncanville, and our team, we were looking for a way to do something different to show them our appreciation. And we learned that we hadn't done a formal gathering of the counselors during that period of time, and so we felt like this would be a good time to bring the counselors in all throughout the district, provide them with breakfast, and just simply tell them how much we appreciated all they do for us. And so we had a great time on that particular day. You see a photo there of all of our counselors in the district. And so we've got very talented, dedicated counselors that serve our campuses, and we recognize the professionals that they are. And I wanted to share with you just the feedback that I received. They were very excited. They were very thankful for the recognition, and they said that, hey, this was one of the best recognitions that they had received since they've been working here. So that was good feedback for me and the team to highlight their contribution for in the district. I also had an opportunity to attend the district science fair just a few weeks ago, and February 15th, actually, we had the district science fair at the high school, and that was kindergarten through 8th grade students. They had an opportunity to apply the scientific method to conduct their independent research on various topics. And I can tell you, I learned a lot. They know what they're talking about, and I didn't know. And so I was educated quite a bit, and it was so inspiring to me to hear them articulate their study and their research. And so we had a really good turnout, and this is a really good activity for our students to be involved in. And so I wanted to share that with you as well. As you know, we're gearing up for our STEAM Academy that will open up next year. And so our Director of Innovation and her team, they have been working the pavement to try to get grants to help with a number of different initiatives that we want to put in place with our STEAM Academy that will open up at Kennemer Middle School. And so I wanted to share this one with you. We got word of this recently. So we have received a $20,000 grant. The grant is for a program that's called Project Lead the Way. This will give our students an opportunity to have real-world, hands-on learning experiences in the classroom. We applied for the grant through a pretty rigorous application process, and Dr. Rentz, who is not here this evening, but I did want to give her special recognition for the work that she did to secure this for our students. And so this is going to provide resources and training and opportunities for our students in our STEAM Academy that otherwise they would not have. And so I wanted to share that with you and what that means for our students. It's, as an important note, TEA has identified Project Lead the Way as an innovative course. And what that means is that students will be able to get a half of a credit for high school. So if you think about our 6th grade students that are going to be in the STEAM Academy, as a result of this grant and all the activities associated with it, the classes that we'll be able to offer, because it's recognized as an innovative course at the state level, our students will be able to benefit from getting that half credit. And so that is a huge deal for them. If you think it's 6th grade, already getting high school credit. So we're really ahead of the curve in trying to really position our students for success. So I wanted to share that with you. Very excited about what that's going to mean for our students. And it actually doesn't stop there. We also applied for a VERIZON Innovative Learning Grant. It was also for $20,000. This grant provides free technology, free access to hands-on immersion in the learning of the STEAM program. The VERIZON Innovative Learning Initiative basically is the group that provides the funding for this. And again, it will just provide resources and training and technology that we're going to use to spearhead our STEAM Academy at Kennemer Middle School. And so really looking forward to seeing those projects come together. Wanted to share that with you. And that concludes the superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you very much. The bond update, Ms. Andrea Fields.
Good evening, Madam Vice President Savage Martin, board members. Again, it's my pleasure to report on the bond program and the progress that we're making in telling our success story one student at a time. Of course, every month over the last several months, I've stood here and reviewed this information, and I guess I always wanted to keep it in the forefront because we're so grateful to you board members and to our taxpayers and the community for the support of the passage of the 2014 bond. Of course, you see there the projects, again, that have been completed. We're thankful for those. And then, of course, the district-wide upgrades there with the safety security package, and I'm going to come back to that in just a few moments. I want to share a couple of things about that. Our technology package, all of those are complete, and what I did this time a little differently is that I did move Daniel Intermediate under aging facilities, but it is complete the work there. If you all recall, we complete that work before we undertook the audit of the bond program, and so I decided to move that on this second slide so that you will know that the work there at Daniel is complete. What I want to share before I finish up with this slide, of course, safety and security of our students and our staff, of course, is our top priority, and so I wanted to highlight a few things about our safety and security package before we move forward. Of course, board and community, you made a tremendous commitment with this bond program, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the safety and security features that were included in this, is just as a reminder, because I know at this time, over the last few weeks, we've had a heightened sense of awareness of safety and security of our campuses. So what I wanted to remind you, of course, with the package, the campuses, with the exception of Brandenburg, had the secure vestibules, were part of the package. Of course, there were some exterior lighting that was added as a part of the safe security packages on the parking lots and exteriors of our buildings. Security cameras were added at our locations, and surveillance technologies where we could watch cameras, what was actually going on in real time, and then if we had to, go back to the footage and it's stored for a period of time in case we needed to review that. Of course, the card readers were installed at the access doors at our campuses, and of course, this time I just want to remind you that Brandenburg will be getting all of those features. If you recall what we were going to do with Brandenburg, we changed our course, and so that work for the secure vestibules and all of that will take place. But of course, as a district, we've put in some other measures of safety and security until that work is completed. It will begin. As a matter of fact, some of it's already begun even for this spring. And so I wanted to just kind of heighten your awareness and recall about what we do have in place. Obviously, again, there are places where we're still, again, fine-tuning things with doors, et cetera, and some older technologies that operate those. But believe me, we are on it. We're working on it. And so if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Smith, and he can, of course, reach to us about the safety security package. But I did want to heighten that and highlight that this evening. As far as aging facilities there, of course, I have the 62% complete for package 1. And you're going to see some pictures here in just a moment that were submitted by North Star builders. We're about done with package 1. I'll remind you again, that's the accessibility, the ramps, et cetera, the restroom, aging facilities. That package is almost complete. Work has already begun at Byrd and Reed Middle School. Some prep work has to be done because of those older facilities, but that work has also already begun there. You'll probably see a lot more action. Spring break, they're going to do a lot of work while we're out, and then the work will become a lot more visible, particularly with the restrooms and other aging facilities that are part of this package 3. Fire alarm and public address systems, that work, again, has begun. And some of the things that you won't be able to see because it's above the ceiling, above the grid. One of the vendors has been out and checked our current system, making sure everything is compatible and whatever we needed to replace. So at Bill Hart, Central Kitchen, and Pace High School, they will also receive the fire panel or the PA system. So that is in progress as we speak right now. Right, I'm ready. Then we thank North Star Builders once again, and our architect partner Huckabee for the work that they've done so far on the aging facilities. So I'm going to show you some pictures here at Hardin. And of course, this is a phase 2. We've already turned over 1 restroom back to the campus, and you see the section 2, and you can see how good the work looks at the bottom there, where they really basically completed that, and we'll be turning that back over to them. These pictures were probably taken about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, so a lot more has happened since then. Of course, at Central, this is the second phase of our restrooms. You see, of course, the work. They had to dig really deep down in there to replumb it, poured back the concrete, and of course, they're beginning to work, and I'm sure a lot more has been taken care of since a couple of weeks ago. Again, at Central, you see there the gym restrooms. You see how deep down in the dirt there, the rough end, sheetrock and ceiling installations going to follow. And I know that I was over there not too long ago, and they've done a lot more work there at Central. Fair Meadows, and I love this picture. It's so picturesque of the Texas and United States flags. They're flying on a beautiful, really winter day, I guess. But you can see the exterior work there. The canopy installed has been there. Again, accessibility, a new ramp, handicap accessible ramp poured, and then the cover so that whoever is using that will be covered in case of rain, and handrails have been installed. Fair Meadows, again, this is the second group of their restrooms, and again, the work there, more concrete, more work, and most of the work is being done at night. So it's not being done during the school day. They're working at night, and that's quite a commitment for the teams that are working. There are about 3 different teams working on all these campuses. And again, at Fair Meadows, you can kind of start seeing the little finish work there, the tile being in, the flooring. And again, another one, and you can see that there. Another group restroom, concrete pour. So, yes. And then Merrifield, just wanted to let you know, it was probably the last campus that we began the work there, so they're still in phase 1. But you can even see the work, those 4 slides there from where they started and all the stuff they took out until you see the finished product there almost complete. Panther Stadium. Again, you can see the gentleman there getting the floor already prepped, and that work is just about done there. Looking forward, of course, we'll finish Merrifield. There's exterior canopy that will be installed at Hardin and Package 2. Again, the work at Brandenburg, they're going to get a lot more scope there than the other two campuses, but that work will begin. And again, we've already started testing our existing systems, and all of the above, the groundwork is in progress. Are there any questions? We'll continue to meet every other Tuesday, so we get reports more frequently than what I present to you, and Mr. Paterka and I attend those meetings along with representatives from technology, and then of course our architects and our builders are all there. We have a great partnership and a great team. The work's moving along nicely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is the Education Foundation's quarterly report, and the presenter is Deborah Lively. Is she here? I don't see her. Okay. We'll now move to the consent agenda.
Madam President, Vice President, I'd like to make a motion that we move two items from the action agenda to the consent agenda. Item C, resolution authorizing investment brokers and dealers, and item D, resolution authorizing the City of Dallas to represent the Duncanville Independent School District in the matter of tax foreclosure sales. Move those to the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Tom moved and Carla, thank you. Sorry. Carla seconded the motion to amend the agenda as stated. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? All of those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? No. Motion passed 5-0. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Madam Vice President, I'll make a motion that we could approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Cassandra. Tom moved and Cassandra seconded the consent agenda be approved as amended. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passed 5-0. We'll now move to the action item 6A. And the presenter is Tiara Richard.
Good evening again. Vice President, Ms. Savage Martin, our Board of Trustees, Dr. Smith. I come before you to present our 2018-2019 district calendar. Essentially, our calendar planning committee included teachers, administrators, and auxiliary staff. Approximately half of the committee, more than 20 teachers, 20 members of that committee were teachers. So teachers had a lot of input into what we're presenting to you. In addition to having representation from almost every department in the district: transportation, SPED, student services, human resources. Our district calendar that our students see that goes public impacts every other calendar that we put together. And so this foundation that we're creating here leads the way for how the next school year is presented. TA requires that student instruction must equal 75,600 minutes. So each calendar has at least 170 days, and that amount equals 76,500 minutes. So we have right about 900, more than 900 minutes, which equals about 3 days of extra time within each of these calendars. So we take care of the student side of it, but in addition, we have to have at least 187 days for our teachers. So we're looking at those two numbers, the minutes for students and then the teacher contract days as we're putting these calendars together. So the committee met in January, and there were two goals that were very clear that came out of that meeting. We wanted to have more equal fall and spring semesters. Our current calendar this school year, the spring was a lot heavier. There were more days in the spring semester than there were in the fall. And much of that was because we, based on the state requirement, and we were not yet a district of innovation, had to start on the after the fourth Monday of the month, which of August, excuse me. We had to start on after the fourth Monday of August, which put us at the very end of August for our start last school year. And so that made our fall rather short and our spring rather long. But now that we're District of Innovation, we actually have a lot more flexibility in when we start and how we adjust some of our time schedule. So again, you approving that for the district gave us that flexibility to be able to make a calendar that best fits our community and best fits our student needs. So we do appreciate that. And so, again, in addition to having more equal fall and spring semesters, a second goal was for us to try to end as close as we can to Memorial Day. So we didn't have students in and teachers in here working through June. And so those are the two goals we looked at. And we recognized that doing this would give us a slightly shorter summer this year, but that's one thing that we really, it would be a sacrifice on the front end. So moving forward, we would have the other options there to be able to, again, have that flexibility and meet our student and teacher needs throughout the school year. So the committee came up with 3 draft calendars that were presented and pushed out for a survey from the community and from our staff. So all staff members could participate in the survey and all community members. We recognize that this calendar also impacts parents, business owners in the community. We wanted to have that feedback across the board. So the first calendar, and you have more detailed and closer calendars that you can read a little bit better on your page. But to give you an idea of the first calendar, it had the start date Monday, August 6th for teachers. So that's a pretty early start date. This last year we started August 10th, so it's in that realm. And then we would end for teachers Wednesday, May 29th. Now that's after Memorial Day. And again, students on this calendar would start on a Wednesday, August 15th. That was a midweek start, and end on Thursday, May 23rd, well ahead of Memorial Day. If you look at the breakdown of the semesters, they're fairly even, which was an important thing. 84 days in the fall to 88 days in the spring. And the student days were well within our minute requirement. So that was draft calendar 1. Draft calendar 2 is the one that actually, it pushed the envelope, but it met the goals that the committee set forward. And so again, teacher start day is actually much earlier. It's the first week in August. So that's a greatly reduced summer, but they got out before Memorial Day. And it would have had students coming on August 15th, which is the same as the first calendar, which is a midweek start, and then getting out, again, before Memorial Day. So on each of these calendars, students managed to get out before Memorial Day. The semesters are still very close. It's only 3 days difference between the spring and the fall semester. So it's the most equal semester calendar that we gave as an option. And again, still well within the minutes. Calendar 3 had a Monday, August 6th start date for teachers, and students started on Monday, August 20th. Teachers get out just after Memorial Day, so it's just a day or so after, but students get out before Memorial Day. And this was the latest start date for students out of all of the calendars. All the other calendars had students starting on a midweek on a Wednesday. This calendar had students starting on a Monday, August 20th. The semesters they're much better than they were in the past, of 81 days in the first semester of the fall and 89 in the second. And again, we're still within our student date requirements. So that survey of these 3 calendars was out for about 2 weeks. We heard back from employees, parents, students, and community members, and the final numbers were in favor of calendar 3. And to refresh your memory, calendar 3 is the one that had students starting on the later time of Monday, August 20th, not the midweek start. And students get out before Memorial Day. Teachers do not. They get out a day or so after Memorial Day. So it's close in that need. Community members drove the calendar 3 in terms of the voting. It was fairly equal on calendar 2. But if you look at the vast number of how many people wanted it, the majority went with calendar 3. And so based on that, and we're looking at the total numbers, because this was open for a 2-week period, and the way the voting was set up, on the community side, anyone could have voted. So they had the opportunity to go in there and vote and say what they wanted. And so, again, the calendar that had the most votes was calendar 3. And so I can answer any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am.
I'm thinking calendar 2 would be
Correct.
The community and parents were only voting on it like a survey?
Correct.
Okay, was it email-based, web-based?
The way we push the information out, it was, it's a link on the website, but we did push it out to community and staff members multiple ways. We did the newsletters, so the district newsletters. We did the website, so it was out there on the community side and for the district side on the website. We used the district mobile app. We used social media, Facebook and Twitter. And we use email internally for employees. So employees probably received the most messaging, but it did go out in multiple fashions.
Of the community, do you know how many of the 344 or 182, whatever, how many of those were parents? Or was it just?
There's no way to know because we can't lock down and force them. The way we had it set up, the community vote was open because we couldn't require people to register. If we required people to register, then there are communities that, for example, business owners and others that also should have a voice in the calendar who don't have the ability to register in. And so it was an open process on the community side in terms of voting.
Well, normally I would go for what our teachers would want, but also the parents, they have to consider vacation time and childcare time while the children are out from school. So there is a different, 1 and 2 are sort of more similar than 3. 3's out there. Okay, so, all right. Maybe in the future, would it be okay maybe to have a couple of parents on the committee?
In the past, we had, and this was one of the times that I wish I had made that push to have that. And I did reach out to some parents and ask for specific feedback, but they weren't pulled into the committee discussion. I do understand and agree. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know how the teachers feel about calendar 3?
Do I know how teachers feel? Well, there were teachers voting for it across the board. Well, I have anecdotal comments, but it's hit or miss, but I know that teachers did vote for it also, and also that community voting option, we say community, but anyone had the ability to vote on that. That could have been teachers voting on there also. So again, that community one is open, and in the future, to address that, we'll probably do just an open voting process. Many districts do that. They don't try to lock it down and say this is from teachers and this is from community. They just do an open voting process so that everyone is able to just offer feedback in whatever way they choose. And so moving forward, we'll probably take that approach. We were trying to break it down and get more specific information, but in doing so, I think that the community side may have also had some employee feedback on there also. Thank you.
Yeah, the husband runs off when the wife's not.
So, Madam Vice President and board members want to offer a couple of points for you to think about as you make your decision. One, we made it clear to the committee that, their work was a recommendation. This is a decision that is required by the board. And so the second point associated with that is that the things that you want to consider as you think this through as a board is really what's in the best interest academically for the students, and is it more important for us to have more balanced calendars, obviously balanced semesters, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to say calendars, but balanced semesters. And if you notice at calendar number 2, of course, that's really a big one for our teachers because they understand how important that is for our students. And so that's where the favor is there. And so as you get prepared to make your vote, I wanted you to be clear that the committee understands that they're providing feedback and they're giving the board options, but it ultimately is a board decision. And then the second thing, in terms of the impact that the calendar has on the academics for the students. And so you see that feedback there from the teachers. So those are 2 points I wanted to give you as you think about what you want to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, the semester-wise, the second one is more balanced. But it's curious to me why, for student total days, 3 has 170, 2 has 171, but the
first one has 172, so that's a total of 2 whole days for the students?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, there's 170 days.
Total days for students on one.
Yes, ma'am.
Calendar 2 says 171 total days for students, and calendar 3 is 170
Yes.
for students. So that's to me, that's a big difference if I'm a student.
Yeah, if you're a student, how you get out and when you get out. If you're basically, for in particular calendar 2, which is 171 days for students, yeah, that's the middle ground, and then there's the one where it has a lot fewer days, or one less day and then one more day. So the middle ground is 171.
2 is the recommendation from the committee.
No, 3.
No, 3 is the recommendation from the committee, right?
They have the majority.
The majority is number 3. It's not the committee recommendation. The committee agreed upon all 3 of these, that any 3 of these would be good. And then the voting went to our community and teachers, and they voted on calendar 3, correct?
The committee itself did not make up.
The committee itself was good with all 3 days. Each of them said any 3 of these calendars, would be good and would work for us as a committee because it met the major goals that were set forward of having more equal semesters and getting as close to possible as ending before Memorial Day. Those are the 2 goals of the committee, and each of these 3 calendars do reach that goal.
Madam Vice President, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that the board accept the calendar 2 as the recommended calendar for the following school year.
I second.
Okay, Tom moved and Carla seconded the motion for calendar 2 for the 2018-2019 school year. Are there any questions, comments, further discussion? We just went out up here. Okay, there we are.
I think they were transitioning
Oh,
slides.
okay. All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes, or any opposed, sorry. Motion passes 5-0 for calendar 2. We will now move to action item 6B, bandwidth and firewalls. And,
Ms. Cowan.
okay. Shantae Cowan is going to give us information.
All right, good evening, Madam Vice President Savage Martin, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to present to you all this evening. And during this time, I'd like to present a proposal for a solution for a bandwidth need that our district has, as well as necessary components for that bandwidth. So before we get started, I'd like to go over just a few terms with you all just to make sure we're on the same page. The first term that you're going to hear me talk about during this presentation is the word bandwidth. Bandwidth, in essence, is how much data that can pass from one point to another at a given time. So, for instance, you all have your iPads in front of you. If you were to go to the Duncanville ISD website, how long would it take for you to access that website at a given time? All right. The next word we have up there is content filter. Our content filter is a device, or it could be a program that prevents users from accessing inappropriate content when on the web. So, for instance, our students, when they go on the internet, whether on purpose or an accident, if they access something on the web that is inappropriate, they'll get a message that says the wall. They know the wall very well. So we are here to make sure that we are protecting our students when they're online and in our network. The next word you'll hear me talk about today is the firewall. The firewall is a device or a program used to prevent unauthorized users from accessing our network with malicious intent. So at home, you may have a computer with a firewall. McAfee, Norton may sound familiar to you all. We also have firewalls here to protect our students and our end users when here in the district. And then lastly, you'll hear me speak of E-rate. E-rate is a government program that provides us with discounts for telecommunication services, internet access, and other services, and that's for schools and libraries. And so here in our district, what I had to do just a few weeks ago was to provide our E-rate partners with the number of students we have, the number of campuses we have, as well as the number of students that qualify for free and reduced services. And because of that, for instance, when requesting internet access, they're giving us a 90% discount for that internet service. So in essence, we only have to pay 10%. So if everything is approved, that's a great, great discount for our district. All right. So moving on to the next slide. I do want to, before we get started, we're going to talk about the current bandwidth condition for our district, but I do want to talk about some good news that we've had here in our district. I've had the privilege to serve in this district for 3.5, going on 4 years as Director of Technology. And I do want to thank you all for providing me with the opportunity to serve as Interim Chief Technology Officer during this transition time. But during this time, I've also noticed, one, the number of devices on our network has increased. So over the past year or so, we've seen the number of Chromebooks, iPads, laptops increase. That's great news for our students because now they have all those devices in their hands. We've also seen the number of BYOD users increase on our network. BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. So we actually have a network specific to students. So when they bring their own devices like their laptops, iPads, phones here in the district, they use our network to filter it so that we make sure that they're being safe. I've also seen the increase of programs utilizing the internet. So whereas we would have a disk and we'd put it into our computers and download the software, now a lot of programs are web-based. So that means that we can go on and access our content from any type of device. It could be a laptop or any other type of mobile device. I've also seen the increase of streaming of video on our network. We may have had, we use Safari Montage as one of our video repositories where students can go in and put in a specific standard. Teachers can too and stream video. Of course, YouTube and some of our other educational resources, we've seen that increase as well. And then lastly, I've seen an increase of cloud storage. So many of you maybe use Google Drive or OneDrive, Dropbox. A lot of our staff members and students also use that to access their storage. So with that being said, I think these are all great things for our district. As we continue to move forward with our technology usage, we have to keep in mind that as our devices and programs increase, so will our need for the internet increase. So if you would look over to the right-hand side of the screen, we're going to just kind of talk through very quickly what's needed and what we have. So currently DISD has one circuit that's routed to and from the technology building for internet use. So when you think of a circuit, if you were to pull back the dirt from the ground and look underneath, you'll see fiber running through. That fiber allows the internet to flow through, and that's how we're accessing the internet that we have here in our district. So we have one of those circuits that we're currently using. We do have a second one, but it's used for backup purposes only. I do want you to keep in mind that our content filter that we have right now expires May 2018. That's just a few months from now, so we really have to make a decision pretty quickly on this one. Keeping in mind also the content filter is what we use to protect our students when they're accessing the internet. And then lastly, we have the internet bandwidth is consistently reaching maximum capacity. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a screenshot of a system that we use to monitor our bandwidth. So the top portion you'll see where you can see the red and blue lines, that's basically showing us how it's increasing and then maxed out. So what do we do about that? Well, we do have a temporary solution right now. Before I mentioned to you that we have a BYOD network that our students use, we have had to make the decision to limit access to that network at this time, just so we can make room for our critical programs that we have. So our students are able to use the internet, and our staff members are too, but temporarily they cannot access the BYOD network. We've also decided to limit some of our streaming capabilities for programs such as Spotify and Pandora because they're not critical educational resources, and so those have also been limited temporarily. So just
to keep that in mind. One other thing I do want to talk to you about before I move forward is I've had the question come up whether or not this, what I'm requesting is bond related, or did we use the bond to pay for this previously? I do want to just make sure that you understand the difference between the two. The way I would call it would be to separate them between inside wiring and outside wiring. So if you were to imagine, we would kind of pull back the ceiling in here, you would see a lot of blue cables kind of going through. Those cables will go down the wall, and we can plug into those, into our wall jacks with, we could say our IP phones or our internet-based phones could go in those jacks. Our laptops can go in the jacks, the desktops. If we were to go back up to the ceiling, we would notice that we'd have wireless access points. Those are inside wiring tools. If we were to follow those cables all the way to a closet, we would see racks that have switches in it. All of that is our inside wiring. In order to make the internet work in this building, we have to have updated wiring. And so what we did with the bond was to replace a lot of the old wiring in the buildings. So some of the wiring was existing wiring that may have been from 1980s, 1990s, 1970s. So a lot of that was replaced with the bond funds. Another area that was replaced was our data center. Previously, there was a data center at the old technology building. We now have a new technology building with new equipment. About 10% of the old equipment was brought to the new building. So in order to make sure that we were up to date, we had to replace all of that inside wiring. What I'm requesting or proposing today is the outside wiring. So like I said before, if we were to look under the ground and we would see all that fiber running through, just this last school year, you probably remember us going out to bid for our WAN, which we called our Wide Area Network and our internet. That was to replace old cabling in the ground, okay? We already have the cabling there, our circuits. We just need to increase the amount of internet going through it, okay? So that's the difference between the two. All right, moving forward, I do want to talk to you about our needs assessment. So what are we looking at today? If you would see the top pipe that we have here, just as an illustration, we currently, like I said, we have our circuits running through the ground, but we also have the capability of 1 gig of internet. That's basically, it's not much for a district our size, I would tell you that. We've done a lot of extensive research, myself and my team, and have come up with a decision that the outlook that we would need at least 10 gigs of internet circuit service. I also researched through the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission, and they also have said that basically looking at a district our size, that we need 10 gigs of internet service. So that kind of helps us to understand that we're under where we need to be as a district. So if you would look at the top section, you can see in the past we had about a gig of data, and now we have 1 gig of internet service. So when we had a gig, we could kind of fit it right through the pipe with no problem at all. But as we continue to grow as a district and our data increases, what happens when we try to get through our pipe? You can see up here, we get stuck, right? We can't go any further because right now we only have 1 gig, but we have more data than a gig. And so what we're proposing, again, is to move from 1 gig of internet service to 10. If you notice the bottom portion there, if we were to do that, of course, our current data would now fit through the pipe perfectly. And not just that, but we would have room for growth. So at this point, we want to have the opportunity to plan ahead so we're not stuck in a situation where we have to just kind of quickly get what we need. Planning for the future is critical. Okay. Next, just so you know, the devices and programs, I can't really touch on every single thing, but I am going to highlight some of our most common programs that we currently use on our internet. So on the left-hand side, you can see that, of course, online testing. Today we started telepass testing. So our technicians were out and about helping and making sure all the computers were on the network today. Video streaming, desktops are on our internet, laptops, iPads, Chromebooks, and so forth.
The Collegiate Academy has one-to-one devices, so they're going to be using the internet quite a bit. Our Max, Bring Your Own Device Network, CTE has pockets of one-to-one devices here in the district, which is a great thing for them. Safari Montage and YouTube, streaming, classroom instruction, IP-based cameras. So most people don't think about our security cameras, but they actually use the internet to work. Our phones use the internet to work because they're voice-over IP phones. Digital displays. We actually have live announcements that a lot of students will stream. So that's another method that we use. And then lastly, we have proximity learning. I do want to point out with proximity learning, I've heard it said that perhaps this is the reason why we're having some bandwidth issues, and I do want to address that and let you know and rest assured that that's not the case. In the 15-16 school year, we only had about half a gig of internet ability. This past school year, into the 17-18 school year, we rose up to 1 gig. Again, the FCC recommends that we have 10 gigs. So you can see that we are behind. That program in isolation is not why we're struggling with this issue. It's more of the fact that we just need to increase it. If you were to go to the FCC's website, there is a program called Education Superhighway. You can type in any school district and determine what exactly they need as well. Also know that we're not the only ones in this situation. Many other districts are working to do the same thing to increase their bandwidth as well. On the right-hand side, you can see our future programs and devices. Of course, we want to be prepared for our future. Under the direction of Dr. Smith, he has helped us to be able to move ahead with our STEAM Academy and our pre-K program, our Collegiate Academy, to be, comparable to some of our surrounding districts. So as we do that and we move forward with that, we want to make sure that we have the equipment and we have the devices and we have, of course, the internet capability to sustain those programs. So if you would look at the STEAM Academy, I know right now there are devices they're looking to get. We have had, as you saw, congratulations to Ms. Rentz's team for $40,000 in grant funds for that equipment. I'm very, very proud of her and that initiative. But in order to make that work, we're going to have internet for that. So keeping in mind all those other grant opportunities, increased testing, the state is going to start requiring us to have more online testing in the future. Many district leaders, I talk to them, and they're all kind of panicked about it as well, that how are we going to sustain this? Where are we going to get the devices? How are we going to keep the internet going? So many of them are also trying to make those decisions to increase their bandwidth because of that as well. And then any other programs that might come up. Current risk, I'm going to touch on this just briefly because we kind of mentioned these three as well, but the firewall is critical. As we move from 1 gig to 10 gig, we also have to make sure that our firewall is also increasing as well. So you may have heard a lot of school districts have been targets of cyber attacks here lately, ransomware attacks where they're stealing their data and holding it ransom. We as a district, we take that very seriously, so we work really hard to protect our environment and our students and our data from any type of cyber attack. So increasing our firewall capability is critical as well. Our content filter is the same way. Of course, we have to expand that to reach the capacity for 10 gigs. If you would notice up here, it talks about E-rate again. That's the government program that gives us discounts. If we don't have the appropriate content filter, we would lose that discount and then have to repay any funds that we were able to get from them in the past. We also have to be in compliance with federal law. The Children's Internet Protection Act is called SIPA. We are responsible for making sure that that's being followed. And lastly, of course, we want to make sure our students are very safe when they're online. Intermittent and non-existent internet access district-wide is something that we want to make sure that we can address and ensure that our students and our staff can get what they need. So what I'm proposing to you today is to, again, move our internet capability from 1 gig to 10.
With that being said, we are under a current AT&T contract, so we'll have to address that as well. Also, I'm asking that we have the funds for additional appliances and components that go with that bandwidth. And then also, we would need to increase, again, the firewall and content filter compensation for the bandwidth. Lastly, that last bullet is referring to SSL inspection. Long story short, that's basically another added layer of security to make sure we're safe above that firewall. On the right-hand side, you'll see the cost that we're looking at. For the firewall, we're looking at $205,800 for the year. For a content filter, we're looking at $171,408 for 3 years. Also keep in mind, just going back to the firewall, we would request E-rate funding assistance for that, so that price would actually go down. I can't give you the exact amount at this time because we don't know what percentage, but just know that that would be less than what you see here. The bandwidth increase, so that would be the cost for a year plus a few months, because at the first few months, if we were to move forward pretty quickly, we would have to pay at cost, and the next school year, we would pay the 10% discount, okay? And then lastly, the appliances and switches. We have to make sure we have the correct appliances in our data center to make this work. So based on what we've done so far, my projection would be that if we would move from 1 gig to 10 gigs, that would last us about 2 to 3 years at the rate that we're going right now. Of course, again, that gives us a little bit more time to plan appropriately so that we can make sure we're getting what we need and how we need it. And lastly, the proposed timeline that I have before you today is, of course, moving our bandwidth from 1 to 10, requesting C1 and C2 E-rate funding. That would be for the bandwidth and the firewall, to file RFPs for the firewall and the content filter, to request board approval, which is what we're looking at today. And then the tentative date for deployment would be the end of April 2018, possibly May 2018, if everything goes perfectly smooth. And if approved, again, the E-rate funding for the bandwidth and firewall would begin July 1st, 2018, which is our next 18-19 school year. So at this time, I'd love to entertain any questions that you all may have.
Tom?
I have a couple of questions, I think, but I'm concerned about the April date.
Okay.
I know we're struggling at the high school now with lessons and being able to teach using devices and stuff. And, you know, I don't know if it's a critical point or not, but I know I hear a lot of chatter about it, and I don't hear a lot of chatter about a lot of things. So I'm assuming that there's people that are real concerned about their inability to use their computers for the lessons that they're supposed to be teaching and stuff. So is there not any way that we can move that date up so this could be done like tomorrow? I know that's but I mean,
Believe me, yes, I wish there was. Unfortunately, because we have to go through the E-rate process and the RFP bidding process, it does take some time, but we've done everything we can up to this point to move as quickly as we can. Again, like I know you probably have heard some things out and about. We are hovering anywhere between 750 to 800 megabits per second. So what that means is basically that there's 1,000 in 1 gig. So we're hovering around 750 to 800 each day. The only time we would ever max out would be like the day before a holiday, like day before Christmas. We saw that increase. But as we continue to monitor, our staff has done a really good job monitoring each day. If we see anything that gets too high, then we'll have to start making decisions to take or block certain things in order to give us what we need.
The other question I have is, you said this would only work carry us for the next 2 to 3 years. Are we have a plan in place to already start working on what we're going to do before 2 or 3 years it comes along, so we don't
Yes,
get
sir.
in the same situation?
Absolutely.
It seemed to me that maybe instead of going to 10, we might want to go to 20 now and just be prepared.
I like your thinking.
Well,
Can you write that down for me? I'm sorry.
I think it behooves us to do whatever we need to do.
Yes, sir.
To make sure that our students are getting exactly what they need. And 'cause that's what we're
Absolutely.
supposed to be about, you know, and
Absolutely.
doing that. And we've got money, and it's silly not to spend it if we have a need. You know,
Right.
we can't just let it sit there and not work for us if we have it. And I don't know what 20 costs. I mean, that may be unrealistic, but something so that we're prepared for the future. I mean, hopefully our district's going to grow, and we're going to have more and more kids using devices, so we're going to be fighting this battle forever if we don't go ahead and make plans now to make sure we don't have to fight this battle. And I don't want us to have to fight that battle.
Right.
So, you know, I'm just throwing that out there for consideration. You know, I'll support whatever you want and support it gladly, and I'm sure the rest of the board will as well. So, you know, I think we just need to do whatever we need to do to make sure we're down the road, not like 2 or 3 years, but 5 or 6 years. So
Yes, sir. I
at least that's what I'd
appreciate
like
that.
to see.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. The way we have it set up at this point, we've kind of talked about it briefly, actually not more than just briefly, but to stagger it and scaffold so that we can build upon what we have. So currently, if we were to take the one circuit that we have that we're using, and then we can build that to 10 gigs, what we'd like to do is have another circuit going in another location. So currently, our circuits are going just back from our building and technology to our buildings outside of technology. We would like to have a separate path to the high school, and that's for redundancy. So if for some reason one of our circuits got cut on accident, we would still be functioning because we would have another separate path. And so what we'd like to see is once we get this established, we can plan out in time and finances, and then add that second one so that we'd build in another 10 gigs, and then we'd have a total of 20 gigs in 2 separate locations.
And I agree with that. And it would seem to me that the high school population of 4,500 kids is only going to get bigger, I'm sure.
Right.
That we might even want to have a dedicated circuit just for the high school, and then let the other schools function off the other circuit, just so that we don't run into this problem.
Yes, sir, I agree.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good points. Any other questions? Okay, will you go back to the previous slide? Okay, there you go.
Okay.
So what we're agreeing to do now is all of this, and that's just for the 2 to 3 years?
Yes, ma'am.
438.
Yes, ma'am. So the firewall that you see here, that cost is for a year. In order to continue for the second and the third year, we would have to pay our support fees, and that would be about $90,000 for each year. The content filter, that's for 3 years, so there would be no additional costs for year 2 and year 3. The bandwidth increase that you see there, it would be roughly about $6,000 to $7,000 per year. That's with our 10% discount. And then the support services for the appliances would be about $3,400. So for year 2, it would be around $100,000, and year 3 would be $100,000 to continue. So the first year would be $438, and then $100,000, and then $100,000.
I have just one last question. This $438,953.90, does that include any contingencies that might pop up, or do we need to make that an emotion to not to exceed a certain amount, greater than that amount?
Okay. At this point, there's always room for contingency, but from what I'm seeing and what I kind of mentioned before, the firewall won't be that high of a cost just because of our E-rate discounts. So I don't foresee that being an issue there. And then the other costs, what we did was we went to separate vendors and we averaged the cost of what all of them, so the highest and the lowest, there's all averaged. Once we go through the RFP process, we'll be able to find the most, the vendor that has exactly what we need and cost effective. So more than likely, I can see this amount going down as well for that reason.
Okay, do I have a motion to consider approval for additional bandwidth and firewalls?
Madam Vice President, I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the expenditure requested of $438,953.90 to correct this problem and move forward.
Second.
Okay. Tom moved and Cassandra seconded the motion as presented for the amount presented. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Cowan, and thank you for simplifying the terms.
No problem. Thank you all for your time and for what you're doing for our students.
Now we're going to the information and discussion agenda items. First one is for Melissa Cates, Right at School for before and after school care.
Good evening, Madam Vice President, school board members, and Dr. Smith. Tonight I'm going to give you a quick update on our after-school program. If the board will recall, last year about this time, you all had voted to approve a contract with Right at School. It's a third party that comes into our schools and provides after-school care for several of our students. And before I go through the program, I would like to introduce Ms. Tia Jackson. She's here on behalf of Right at School. She is the regional director, and she has been amazing to work with. She's always available to answer questions. They're very hands-on. They offer to volunteer in our schools and really do whatever that we need to help our students. So they've been a really great partner for Duncanville ISD. So just a real quick update on where we are. Currently, we have Right at School after-school care at 4 of our elementaries. We have them at Acton, Bill Hartz, Hastings, and Hyman. And you'll see on this slide the number of students that we have currently enrolled. The unique thing about Right at School is it allows parents to bring their students every day, or they can also do drop-in. So if you just need to come one day a week, you have that option, or you could come every day of the week. One thing going forward for next year, we are putting out another survey. So stepping back just a little bit, the reason why we chose these 4 schools, last year when we entered into the contract, we sent out a survey to all the parents, and any school with at least 15 parents that were interested in having it at that elementary, that's where we started the program. So now for next year, we're sending out another survey this week to see if we want to add this program at other schools. We've had people starting to call us and call Right at School, and so we're going to send that survey. We're going to get with the elementaries, have them send home information, and see if we can start offering it more district-wide. But another unique thing that Right at School does is they have these camp days, and these are days when school is out and they still provide services and allow students to come for the day. So this may be on a professional development, so if their parents work in the district, they can bring their kids, or even whenever they have just a holiday. They have these camp days, and it's a whole day of they have a curriculum and things that the students are doing all day, providing snacks and just curriculum, so it's not just sitting around, and it's a good opportunity for them to continue to learn. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, oh, I'm sorry, I think, did it skip over? It didn't. Okay, one other thing about the camp enrollment, they're going to offer the summer camp, a summer camp, and that's another opportunity for our students to come during the day, and we're going to offer that at Bill Hartz this summer. And a wonderful thing for these students is we're going to have breakfast and lunch served, so the parents can bring their students to Bill Hartz during the summer. It's a drop-in, again, one day a week or as many days of the week as they would like throughout the summer, and they're also going to be fed under our summer program, our feeding program. But the thing that we liked about Right at School is that they have this very set curriculum. So what they call it is disguised learning. So these are opportunities for the students to go and learn, but in a fun way. So in this picture, you'll see these students talking about story problems, and they actually become the characters. And so all of these pictures you'll see are our actual students. So they involve students doing a lot of creative problem solving, and they have a lot of rigor in them, but the kids enjoy it a lot. So when the students show up, they get to have a snack, and then they kind of get the wiggles out. They do a little bit of movement and things like that. Then they'll have their curriculum, and then they also have their homework done by the time their parents come and pick them up. And so here's another picture of them doing some of their curriculum. This is a little dancing that they're doing. Oops. So again, we're having these summer camps, and they have different field trips, different reading programs. They're having STEM learning, just all different opportunities for our students to learn and have fun throughout the summer. So this is something that's going to be open to all of our students this summer. And then this is just a quick little spotlight on one of our students. This is Devin. He's a 4th grader at Hyman, and he has really been a big leader in the Right at School program. He helps hand out snacks. He helps other students with their homework. And so not only are they doing their homework and learning, but they're also becoming leaders in Right at School. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are at Right at School. It's been a very successful program, and we're hoping to expand it. And I will entertain any questions that the board may have. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. First, I want to commend the program. I think it's a great thing that we've done for our district, and certainly it's opened some doors for parents to be able to utilize some after-school programs that have not existed in the past here. The question I have is the number of kids we have participating about the number we thought we would have, or is it low or high, and what do we need to do to make it higher?
I'm not sure on the numbers that Ms. Jackson may be able to answer the anticipated numbers.
Good evening, Board, Assistant Vice President Janet Savage Martin, and the rest of the Board trustees, and also Superintendent Dr. Smith. The numbers that we anticipated are the numbers that we have. We would like to increase the program. What we found in the surveys that we've completed and what our parents have shared in feedback is that they need a before and after school program. By us adding the program, it would help our families across the board. We also have various families that have elementary and also intermediate families where they need care for all grade levels. So in turn, they're going to other businesses because we're not offering what they need. So we think that the number will increase by adding more programs.
So what do we need to do to offer what they're asking for?
Allow us into the other schools.
I'm sorry?
To allow us to go into the other elementary and intermediate schools that would offer more programming on other campuses to allow the students to have support for both elementary and also intermediate, and then also adding in before and after school care versus just after school care. We've had feedback from several families in reference to needing both. So instead, since we only offer the after school care, then they're going to other companies basically who can provide both before and after school.
I thought when we originally discussed this program, it was going to be designed to provide both before and after.
Yeah, and I can actually speak to that. When we got our surveys back, we didn't have enough interest, but now that the program is going, we've had parents from other schools starting to call. I know that we've worked actively with communications. They're sending out surveys. We're sending home hand flyers, like the actual piece of paper, sending them home with the students in their folders, so the parents are going to be able to see that. We're also offering the survey again to the intermediate to start increasing that. Now that the program's out, I feel like we'll be able to boost our enrollment through that as well.
Sorry, and to build upon what Ms. Kate said, last year we did the survey only online, and we know that in our elementary schools, the paper surveys seem to be of higher interest, so we're doing it both online and through paper. And we've also, through communications, been doing more stories and talking about Right at School. So it helps when you have something tangible to tell people what it is, and describe it and describe our kids in the program to better sell the program. So we have built-in that will be coming out, that will be pushing. So again, having the established program here in the district and marketing that will help, I think, increase the survey participation and also the responses we get that will show the need for Right at School to be in some additional campuses.
Well, I think whatever we need to do is critically important, because of the number of at-risk kids and the economically disadvantaged kids we have in our district, every extra minute they spend at school is a positive for us, because at least they're getting some guidance and curriculum that's based on something besides daycare. And I'm not putting down daycare centers, but I know how important it is for us to have those kids in our care and give them the attention they need. So I just hope we can make it do better. I know we can, so I'm excited about that.
That's the goal.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 7B, dual contracts, presented by Kathleen Brown.
Good evening again, Madam Vice President, Dr. Smith, Board of Trustees. It is my pleasure to present to you about dual contracts, give you some information. Dual contracts are being considered for teacher coach positions in our district. Currently, our coaching staff receive a teacher contract, a Chapter 21 teacher contract, like the rest of our teachers annually, and that does not include their coaching duties. It's only for their teacher assignment. So exploring this option of dual contracts for teachers will allow us a more seamless position control process. And so I want to speak with you this afternoon about how that would impact us in our contracts here in the district. So what is a dual contract? A dual contract is a contract between parties who've made two contracts for the same transaction. So in this case, we would be talking about teacher and coach positions. So we have about 80 coaches here in our district, and so instead of receiving the typical teacher contract that they would receive, they'd receive one that covers both of their assignments. We have been researching, yes.
How many did you say, 8 or 80?
80, yes, ma'am. That covers all coaches, all sports from middle school and high school. So we researched with other districts and sent out some information to get feedback to see which districts are using dual contracts. So we found that over 70% of the school districts in Texas offer some form of a dual contract. Not all teacher coach, but they do offer dual contracts. And when they are effectively used, the feedback we received are that they are a great recruiting tool. And the way that works, even when we're recruiting teachers, when you tell someone they're going to have a contract for that position, that's a selling point. Often when we have coaches join our team who have come from positions that have had dual contracts before, that's one of the first questions that they ask. Will I have a dual contract? Currently, our answer would be no. And so sometimes they're leaving a contract coaching position to join our team. Several of our neighboring school districts offer dual contracts currently, and those are teacher coach positions. So some highlights that would impact us here in our district is that, one, that dual contract locks the employee into maintaining their teaching and their coaching duties. The way we currently have it set up, your coaching duties are an add-on, and so you receive a stipend for that. So if you no longer want to do that assignment, you can say, I don't want to coach anymore, and you're not under a contract to continue in that assignment. So also, if we move to a dual contract, when the assignment ends, whether it's due to resignation, termination, non-renewal, both assignments are impacted. So if I'm a teacher and a coach, I can't say, well, I don't want to coach anymore and then maintain that teacher assignment. I would be making a decision to leave both assignments at that point. Another highlight is that the district can hire that teacher back solely to teach if desired and if a position is available. And so let's say I'm a teacher/coach. I decide I don't want to coach anymore. If I resign from my position, I'm leaving both assignments. That does not make me ineligible to apply back for a teaching position. However, I have to be selected and a position would have to be available. Okay? So we have been working on our current contract to see how the language would change and what it would impact, how it would impact us. And so one, we would enter language about a term for the dual assignment. This specific highlighted portion talks about the work of a coach, that it's not always, it may require them to work before their start date. It may require them to work some after their start date as in relationship to their teaching assignment, because our coaches come in early to start preparing for the season. It also goes into the would impact the compensation part of the contract, and so it would make sure to let them know what that covers, and so that their compensation is for both of those assignments. They would still receive their stipend, but regardless of the actual number of hours or days, their compensation is their compensation under that contract. And then finally, we want to tell them what it does not include. We have some pretty passionate people here in our district, and so sometimes in addition to coaching and teaching, they have other duties that they are a part of as well. They may be over a club or an organization at their campus, and those supplemental duties would not be covered by the dual contract. And so we have language in the contract that would make that very clear, that that is not a part of the contractual agreement. And so if we chose to move in this direction as a district for the 18-19 school year, like I said before, we have about 80 teacher coaches. We have 79 right now, and so they would each receive a dual contract for teacher coach positions. Coach Harper and I have already talked extensively about what the communication plan would look like if we chose to go in this direction, to give our teacher/coaches an opportunity to ask any questions they may have, to show them what a teacher-coach contract looks like, and to point out any language that would potentially change in their contract. And then we would continue to issue our contracts electronically the same way we've done in the past. Just if you're a teacher coach, you would receive a dual contract after board approval in April. Any questions that you all have? Yes, sir.
Yes,
Absolutely.
It's hard to ask all the questions, but this applies to athletic positions?
Yes,
What
sir.
about cheerleader coaches and people like that that have dual assignments?
It could extend to that. Right now, we're focusing on athletic coaching positions. So it would be a dual contract for those. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 7C, School Health Advisory Council Members, presented by Andrea Fields.
Well, good evening again. It was, I guess, about this time last year, I stood before you as the new facilitator of the School Health Advisory Council, and of course, part of our policy requires that we report to you and give you an annual update, and so that's what I'm going to do this evening. Of course, there you see on the slide the School Health Advisory Council, better known as the SHAC, the mission statement, which is, of course, carved out of our board policy, and of course, it is an advisory council. You see the bullet points there, of course, to promote the health of students in the school community, promote the development of lifestyle behaviors that lead to lifelong health and wellness. Another point is to advocate for a comprehensive school health program, and then, of course, to serve to you in a health advisory capacity. We had an awesome group on last year, and we had a few changes this year with our SHAC members. Of course, you see our parents there, and I'm not sure if I see any of our parents in the audience, but I would point out that Miss Amelia Robrillo at Alexander Elementary is our actual chair. You see the Duncanville ISD staff members there, and I want to point out Miss Suzanne Gardner. Many of you know her, enjoying happy retirement as at the end of December, but she did serve on our committee this past fall, and I wanted to recognize her and thank her for her service to the SHAC. We have a new health service coordinator, Ms. Eva Navarro, and of course you see Ms. Donna Thomas, the Director of Child Nutrition there. And I believe behind me is Ms. Gloria Lockhart, community district volunteer par excellence, because she serves in so many capacities in Duncanville. We're grateful for her service, and of course Ms. Shepherd and Ms. Taylor there. At the bottom, you see last year we decided to get a little bit better organized. We planned our meeting dates last year for this year, and so we've met on all 3 of our meetings. Matter of fact, the day before Valentine's Day, we were meeting on February the 13th. I'm going to give you a few updates on some of the things that we've discussed as the SHAC. One of the things we did, we kicked off in October, working in partnership with our Family and Community Engagement Department, in support of that with Ms. Cheval Amelbert, who is the coordinator. And I will have to give her credit. She created this wonderful flyer that our communication department pushed out for us, along with family engagement. In the first SHAC meeting, we had our own Alex Hawkins, who's the head athletic trainer, come to talk to us about healthy lifestyles, and he talked about caloric intake, exercise, what kind of foods, how much water we need to be drinking. It put me to shame. But we had a great meeting. I wish everybody in the school district could have heard him. He came highly recommended by Coach Harper, and he did an awesome presentation. Everybody should hear it. Our athletes are in very good hands, but we thank him for being our kickoff speaker. I've talked about the top bullet there, and then, of course, even in October, we were talking about Policy Update 109, and you recently voted as a board for our grace period of 14 meals, and we're continuing to support that as a child nutrition department. So we thank you for that policy, and it's moving along very, very nicely. Of course, you may recall this was so that we would not have what they were calling the lunch shaming, where we wouldn't take trays from students, but Duncanville was not doing that, but we do offer the 14 paid meals, and just so you remember, you may not, but every student in Duncanville ISD can eat breakfast for free, whether you're on free or reduced lunch or not, because of the numbers of percentage of free and reduced students we have in our district. So that is a plus for us. And then I wanted to, we met, as I said, the day before Valentine's Day, and I did ask Dr. Smith, because we spent a lot of time talking about flu. Of course, that's been a kind of another hot topic in the news media, and so I wanted to share with you Duncanville ISD in partnership with the SHAC and our health services department and maintenance department. We really tried to get ahead of the flu bug in our district. I want to point out a couple of things. Our maintenance department uses what we call the e-mist machines. They kind of look like the little Ghostbuster machine with the backpack and the misters, and they have a rotation across the district. They started this work back in early fall, about October, when we were kind of hearing the flu was going to be very serious this year. And so those are preventative. There's a schedule. I've even shared that with Dr. Smith. So every building, including this one, the maintenance department has a rotation where they're misting the buildings. And this mist is the same mist that was used with the Ebola outbreak here in Dallas. So it kills the flu virus within 9 seconds. So I wanted you to know that we had done that. Our nursing coordinator, Ms. Navarro, of course, shared with us at our SHAC meeting about her communication with Dallas County Health and Human Services. There was a weekly flu surveillance. They were really watching it, looking at our attendance at our schools, and as she reported, no schools achieved the threshold for increased surveillance, so we're very fortunate for that, and you see what the threshold is there. Back in the fall, we thank our partner, Ben Franklin, who offered employee and family flu shot clinic, and so that was in October before we started hearing a lot about it, and a couple other things. We had a flu fighters video that was put together with our communications team featuring one of our own nurses, and we're not going to play that tonight, but if you go on electronically, hit the link, you can see that it is awesome and very catchy and very well done. And the last thing I want to share is that we had those emoji posters, and you see the things that the kids can really relate to. I need to stay home if, and I'm ready to go back to school when, and so we shared some of those. And so those are some highlights from the School Health Advisory Council, and I thank all of those. I said a couple of former members as well in the audience. Thank them for their work, and thank you for the opportunity to serve. Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
Very much. The last item on the agenda is 7D, Budget, presented by Dr. Ed Bigby.
Evening, board members, Dr. Smith. I'd like to talk to you just a few minutes about the possibility of a tax ratification, tax swap election, if I can be smarter than the technology. So I wanted to begin this with the basic piece of it. Tom, you were probably on the board in 2008 when the district had a tax ratification election. It wasn't a tax swap, but you did have one at that time. But a TRE is basically what it goes by. Is necessary if you set the maintenance and operation tax rate basically above $1.04. you can set it anywhere between $1.05 and $1.17, and it triggers a tax ratification election. A tax swap, which is different than just the election, is where you vote to increase the maintenance and operation tax, and you offset that by lowering the INS tax rate by the same amount. So the net to the local taxpayer is zero. There's no change in their taxes as far as the tax rate's concerned. The advantage of this is state funding is based off of your M&O collections and doesn't deal with INS unless we get some support from it. State funding does assume the higher rate when you do that. Each legislative session, there's a movement to stop allowing this because it actually costs the state some money, but so far we've been fortunate enough as a school community that they haven't passed that. The additional M&O taxes that you raise and the additional state funding is used to pay the INS amount that you're going to lose by lowering the tax rate that much. And once again, the overall effect is you see no overall increase in the tax rate, and the district receives quite a bit more M&O funding. A couple of thoughts, and I'm sure you remember this. You can pay debt service out of maintenance and operation, but you can't pay maintenance and operation out of debt service. And if you choose to lower the tax, this is a real strange quirk in the law. If you choose to lower it, once you've had a TRE and passed it, you have to have another TRE to lower your tax rate. And there was some legislation introduced at the last session to change that, and it never got to the floor. Seems a little crazy, but well, it's Austin. The election itself, it can't be held earlier than 30 days or later than 90 days after you set the tax rate. It does not have to be on a uniform election date. I've been involved in a couple of these, and they were intentionally not set on a regular election date, but set at a different date where it was the only agenda item or the only ballot item, so that people totally understood what they were going to vote for. It tends to get lost in a big ballot. Patrons basically vote for or against the tax rate that you set. If they vote for, then it's saying they accept the tax rate that you set. If they vote against, then they're voting against it, and a simple majority determines that. And you have to provide the information to the county clerk just like you do in any election. The difference here is typically you join with other entities and the Dallas County runs your election. This would be an election purely for Duncanville ISD, so Duncanville would assume the total cost of the election. There wouldn't be any cost sharing with any other entities. So why would you need something like this? And I've gotten some help from other people. One thing, a real misnomer is state sick leave. We call it state sick leave. Basically, it's a locally funded state mandate. Last year, we spent a little over $1 million on substitutes. So you can see that's a pretty expensive mandate from the state. Everything has to be published in certain block letters in the newspaper. PEMS, you probably heard that with some swear words on both sides of it. But PEMS is a mandate from the state. We're now contributing to TRS Care, which is, for us old people, that's nice because it's the retirees' insurance, but the burden was placed back on the district. Contributions to employee health insurance, which once again is a great thing, but it was mandated by the state. Dyslexia, we have to identify and serve those students. There's no funding for those. There's no funding for the DAEP, the Discipline Alternative Educational Plans, and open records request. And these are just a few. I've got a TASB publication that's about 40 pages long with unfunded state mandates. It maximizes funding from the state. We're currently operating at the highest allowable maintenance and operation rate of $1.04 without a TRE. Increasing the M&O rate's the only way to increase funding other than number of students. It gives Duncanville a substantial revenue increase with no impact to the local taxpayer and helps overcome some of the deficits created in 2006 by House Bill 1. I've got some things that that bill did because it still echoes through all of our districts. When they passed it in 2006, it froze funding for all districts at the 2005-2006 levels. If you think about what's happened in our economy and other things since 2005, it's changed just a little. It froze inequitable differences in weighted average daily attendance funding from one district to the next. Before this took place, you could figure out the funding for any district in the state. Now each district's funded differently. Every 1,080 school districts are funded differently because of what they call target revenue. It ignored the fact that the cost of student support, fuel, utilities, salaries, insurance, all of our costs continue to rise. No inflation factors were built in. It established a system where every dollar that's raised at the local level saves the state $1. It's a dollar for dollar offset. So if you've seen any of the political ads lately, there's a lot of conversation about the state's share of school funding. I won't go any deeper than that or we'll get a letter. It ignored the transportation allotment that hasn't been updated since 1984, and in 1984 it didn't pay for transportation. It's just minimal, and those are just a few things that it did to us. When I worked through this, I used this year's funding because we have all the data to do that with. Next year's we still don't have we won't have our values for a while, and we didn't have the comptroller's values until last week. So it's current year tax collections, past year property value for the comptroller. Remember, they stay a year behind us. So if we're in the 18 tax year, then what they fund us off of is the 17 tax year. Tax effort, total ADA projections, and total ADA projections for categorical students. These are special education students, gifted and talented, career and technology, and any student that's in a special program of any kind. So this is what the budget looked like this year. The ADA used in it was $11,981. The tax rate for maintenance and operation was $1.04. It raised $41,681. The INS tax rate was $48,148. It raised $19,297. Total tax rate $52,148. Raised almost $61 million. When you plug that into the formulas for the state, it picked up $57,764.87 from state revenue, tax revenue for $1. This is M&O revenue, and there's a reason they break all this out. I won't go into that now, but I'll certainly will if you'd like for me to. $40 million for the $1, and then for the 4 cents above, it raised $1.6 million, or a total M&O revenue from the state and the tax collections of just a little over $99 million. Had we had a TRE in place, had the same ADA, our M&O tax rate would go from $1.04 to $1.17, picks up nearly $47 million. INS tax rate would go down by 13 cents. So it would be at $35,148, a little over $14 million. You can see the tax rate's the same, the tax revenue is the same. The difference is in the state revenue. We're picking up $62 million now, and then the rest of it is the added M&O tax revenue, and we were at $99 million as currently we are, and this would be almost $109 million. These are the two of those side by side, so I know it's hard to remember those numbers, but you can see the M&O collections between the two is plus $5,210,000. INS collections would go down by $5,210,000 because we're offsetting the tax rate. So the difference, the tax rate would be exactly the same. Difference is the revenue from the state would go up almost $4.3 million. The tax revenue for the dollar would be the same, but you can see how it multiplies for the other levels. So we'd pick up 99.4 as we currently are. If the TRE was in place, we'd pick up almost $109 million, or a difference of $9,477,000. Now remember, we've reduced the INS rate by that amount of money, so you're going to have to pay it back out of M&O. So $5,210,000 of that would come out to pay the debt service, which would leave us a net of almost $4.3 million above what we're currently getting this year with the tax rate the same. There is some debt service help from the state. I just wanted to show you here that when it goes through the formulas, that doesn't change. We'd still get a little over $1 million from the state from debt service. We talked very briefly, Dr. Smith and I did, and some other input, what would the funds be used for. I think if you ever, certainly if you're going to go to the public with it, they need to know what it's going to be used for. Enhancement of choice programs and academies that are now being built. Buses, Ms. Fields, she amened that when we were going through it earlier. But regular and special education, I think we're in need of about 11 buses. Budget needs that have been overlooked in the past. I'm sure there's been a wish list that hasn't been approved in the district. Capital needs in the district, and ongoing technology, as you've heard tonight, updating and enhancements. Some historical data that our financial advisor provided. These began in 2007 is when you could start having these. And the data through 2017, there's been 661 tax ratification elections. 511 of those have passed. 150 have failed, or 77.3%. In a non-tax swap situation, you can see since 2012, 82.4% of those have passed. Only 26 failed out of 148. Tax swaps, 95.4% have passed, or 108, and 103 of those passed. I don't know why the other 5 did not have to do a lot of research to figure that out and do a lot of wondering. But the pass rate has been extremely good for the tax swaps. In order to make this work, we'd have the estimate of values on April the 30th. We're set up now for you to potentially approve the budget and the tax rate at the June 18th regular meeting. Within the boundaries of the 30 to 90 days, you could set the election for September the 8th, and these are certainly just suggestions. It wouldn't be anything you would be tied to. Partially, that thought is our staff will all be back, particularly the ones that live in Duncanville ISD, and it would also give you time to go to the schools or whatever and present the information to PTAs or anyone, since we'd be back in school. You'd have to contact Dallas County and then determine your early voting spots, those things. And then, once again, the county clerk would have to be notified. What if it fails? We talked to our financial advisors. There's a little difference in opinion. There's one school that says if it does fail, you just go back to the rollback rate. That's actually what the statute says. The problem with that is the rollback didn't come about because of the INS tax rate. So you need to make sure if it didn't pass that the INS tax rate, you could set it high enough to pay the debt. So if you had the election in September, you'd still have time to post and have another session to set another tax rate before the October 1st tax bills go out. You could set the rate back to what it was initially, and we'd just go on having school. And that's a nutshell of TRE. Dr. Smith and I talked and felt like it was something that we would like to present to you and see if you had thought there was some merit to it, or I certainly don't know the political winds of Duncanville ISD, but you folks certainly do. When I've been involved in it before, there's been PACs that formed to support them. Of course, the school certainly can't do that, but I'm sure you had one for your bond election in 14. Those people are usually your staunch supporters of the school district, and they'll form up anytime you do need that kind of help. And I just wanted you to see an overview of it. If you have questions, I'll certainly try to answer those.
I appreciate you bringing the idea to us, because we certainly weren't aware that we could do that tax swap. And it's really kind of a no-brainer. The only downside is doing the education, making sure
Yes,
that the
ma'am.
public is aware of that it's no increase and that it's just a way to kind of manipulate taxes.
Which is their money anyway.
Right.
You know, we get local, state, and federal funding, and you guys pay it all.
Right.
So it just comes about differently. There is, when I was in McKinney, we had a TRE, and there was an organized opposition to it. Oddly enough, they didn't live in McKinney ISD. My daughter's the school attorney in Keller, and when they had their TRE, they had exactly the same thing. There was an organized effort, and they weren't part of Keller ISD. So it's just a mindset, I guess. But yeah, I think the education piece of it would be critical, because most people see tax on the ballot, and it's just, no, I'm not going to do that. And don't blame them there. Everybody pays a lot of taxes.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we leave that, so moving forward, I'll continue research, study, getting feedback from the board, so that we can properly put a plan in place to prepare the education part, if we do indeed go in this direction. And so, you know, I'll just be visiting with you all collectively to get more feedback. As you have time to process what you heard today, get a feel for maybe how the stakeholders might respond, and then giving me feedback, which would guide my next steps. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to communication from citizens. And we do have one and another card. Tiara, there's another one. If there's communications from citizens, we now received two cards. And before you make your way to the front, please allow me to read the following. State law prohibits board members from responding to speakers in public forum unless the topic regards a matter specifically posted on tonight's agenda. The board will carefully consider any concerns expressed, and an administrator will investigate the matter. At your request, the administrator will contact you regarding your concern. Speakers will limit their comments to 5 minutes. If more than 5 speakers are present, speakers must limit their comments to 3 minutes. If delegations of more than 5 people plan to speak on the same topic, they should appoint one representative to speak in their behalf or be limited to 5 speakers. Any discussion concerning specific personnel is prohibited in open session. If you wish to address the board regarding a personnel matter, please contact the superintendent's office to schedule the matter for a future closed session meeting. Having stated that, when I call your name, please come forward, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to address the board. Vincent Davis.
Good evening, everybody. Now, when you say address, you mean home address?
Your home address.
Okay, well, I'm going to address my name. Vincent Davis, address 1000 Red Clover Lane. The stuff I want to hit on or make a statement on tonight is, it's 3 things. It's education, it's the behavior in the schools, and it's the athletic programs. The first thing I'm going to do is education. First off, I do sub for the district. I started September the 1st. My first day was at Duncanville High School. The education is, I think, it's gone downhill since I was here in Duncanville. I feel like giving kids packets every day, not having them read out the book, not doing short answers, stuff like that, I think that's really ruining them, ruining their minds and everything like that. The second thing I want to hit on is behavior. The behavior in the schools, from the high schools, the middle schools, the intermediate, it's all bad. And I don't know if y'all go to the schools like on a daily basis and actually see it, but as a sub, it's ridiculous with some of the things that I'm seeing on a daily basis, from bullying to fights to everything, to throwing stuff in the classroom, eating on the phones. I don't understand it. It's a lot of more stuff I want to hit on, but I'm not going to hit on it tonight. I'm going to wait for another time for that. The third thing is the athletic program at the high school. The boys' basketball team, pretty sure everybody knew what happened a few weeks ago with DeSoto. It was an embarrassment, not only for the district or the town, but it was also an embarrassment to me. I remember when McNeely was the coach, I don't remember anything like that happening. I don't know Coach Chisholm personally. I remember playing against him when I was at Byrd and he was at Kennemer. And I remember playing against him in high school when he was the head coach at Life Charter Oak Cliff. And some of the things I'm seeing from him, I don't think he has control of the program.
Remember, this is not the setting to talk about specific personnel.
Okay. Well, I'm going to end it at that, and I'll hit on a couple more points at another time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. I believe it's Miss Loudon. London, sorry.
Hello. Can I give you this picture? Can y'all look at this picture? Okay. Y'all took pictures. Y'all let Life Touch come and give y'all the kids pictures. Please look at that picture. It look like a prison picture, a mug shot. Can you look at it?
Yes.
Can
You
pass
want to
it around,
pass it
please?
down?
It looked like a mug shot. I have Facebooked that picture, and everybody thinks it's a mug shot. And I think that's a big embarrassment to anybody. You know, why would y'all let our kids take a picture with a board in front of their face? Under them, like they're in jail. That's what they look like. I mean, Life Touch, they mess up a lot of pictures, but I never seen that. I have never seen that. And my fifth grader took a picture like that also at Daniel. He told his teacher, I didn't know what he was talking about. He told the teacher that he looked like we're in jail, you know. And when I looked at it, I was like, dang, it do look like you in jail. Are they serious? What kind of symbolism is that? I mean, I don't know if they thought that was good or that was nice, that was beautiful, but that's the most insane thing I ever seen. I mean, the picture is all the way in Colorado right now, and everybody's saying the same thing. Why would you take a picture like that, you know? I mean, there got to be some kind of little backgrounds you can put on a picture besides that. Have a kid to take a picture with something under them like they do in jail. You do the same thing in jail, it's just a number there. You know, in jail they have a number there. They have a name under it. But, I mean, come on, you prepping them for jail? I mean, come on, what is going on? I'm taking my 3 minds out of your school next semester. My 3 minds I have in your school are number 1 in your school. You know, I came here last year and told you about Kwame London Alexander, my son, how smart he was. He took your test, the STAR exam. He missed 1 on the STAR exam, 1 on the math test. He mastered the state test, and he does it every year, you know. I mean, this year he felt that school was crazy, you know. He don't understand nothing. He never really understood the purpose of school, period. But he's so brilliant, and he's pretty much a little genius that, you know, we really don't know what to do with him. I had him in the charter school. I had him in Dallas ISD. Then I had him in Duncanville ISD. And y'all did a real good job with him. I'm not going to say you didn't do too much of a good job, but I do know this year your 8th grade teachers are lazy. I mean, I have seen that they are lazy. I mean, you have a policy that makes them lazy. Your policy states that after 3 days, the kids get a 50 if they turn in their work late. 7 days, a 0. Your policy has that. Y'all voted on that. But maybe some people before y'all, they voted on that. That needs to be changed because that makes the teacher very, very lazy. And I have a problem with that because my son is taking only pre-honor classes. He took it in 7th grade, now he's doing it in 8th grade. And his teacher, she feel he lazy. I said, hey, y'all lazy too. I said, yeah, he turned work in late, but his testing grades are higher than his regular classwork grades. That's amazing. It's crazy. You know, so I have told the state of Texas that they're going to see me this summer, and I'm going to talk about Duncanville ISD now because, you know, I've been out to Dallas ISD for a long time, 5 years. I mean, and they are improving. But I do say, he right, your school district is going downhill. It's going downhill. And then 2 weeks ago, you took these pictures, and y'all let Life Touch, that's the name of the people, Life Touch, y'all let them make the kids look like inmates. All of them, every kid in the building took a picture with that thing under them, just like this, smiling, you know? That's inappropriate. That's very inappropriate. I mean, I just can't believe that. I did the polls today, and I took that around. I showed all the Republicans and the Democrats. I showed everybody. I said, look at this picture. What does it look like? Do you know what everybody said? A mugshot. Come on. Y'all got to do better. I mean, but this company we're going to go after this company, Life Touch, because whoever decided this, putting a board in front of the kids like they're in jail, that's just not appropriate. You know, it's ridiculous. But I'm going to take my three brilliant minds up out your school because, you know, my other son that's at Daniel, he's mastering tests. They test takers, you know. We don't have no problems when it comes to school, period. But I have a problem with that picture. That picture is horrible. I mean, I ain't never seen nothing like that. A picture, and then they sent this home and forced this on us and said, if you want it, pay for it. If you don't, send it back. Why you send it? Don't send me this mess. Matter of fact, I am asking them not to take any more pictures this year. Any. I don't want no damn picture of my kids on none of y'all, on nothing. Nothing y'all do. Life Touch,
The
Duncanville.
5 minutes is up, but
Nothing.
thank you, Ms. London, for bringing that to our attention. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I need that picture back. They want this
Yes,
back.
definitely.
These pictures need to be burned, though. You know.
Okay, any more citizens? Thank you for coming to the meeting. Being that there are no further items to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.